Everyone has a bright light inside of them that deserves to be seen by the world. That's why it's time to shine the light on the extraordinary who are accomplishing phenomenal things. This is the Shine Out Loud Show with Lillian Ogbogo.
Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever in the world you are, and welcome to another episode of the Shine Out Loud Show with me, Lillian Ogbogo. I have one half of a duo of men. Yes, I love getting our men on the show. And these men decided that they'd had enough of diversity being a fad conversation. They've had enough of diversity being paid lip service to, and decided to do something about it within their own community. So I'm talking about none other than the duo that brought to us Connect4Better, or as you may know them, C4B. And the whole essence behind this is actually to deal with the barriers and the blockage that are impacting young people from our community, from the BBAME community, getting ahead. And I have one half of the duo, Ayo Akande, with me this evening. Hi, Ayo. How you doing?
Hello, Lillian. How are you doing too? Thank you for having me on the live show, and hello to everybody listening or that may be downloading this afterwards as well.
Exactly. So you're welcome. I'm actually glad that you're on the show, and we want to go into C4B. We want to look at what made you guys start this, but let's start at the very, very beginning. What inspired C4B?
Well, that's a very good question, and yes, and unavoidably, my partner and friend could not join us this evening, but that's fine. I should be able to talk you and the viewers and the listeners through C4B as much as I can. So 3 years ago, we found ourselves, not particularly by appointment, we sat down in front of a Costa shop, actually. In 2015, and we're just chatting. We had worked together a couple of years before, where Dotto, my partner, was a finance director in a school, and I was brought in as a consultant project manager. And we were just reflecting on our time, and I guess we were just reflecting on our environment as well, and in terms of the people around us and where people were and the opportunities that people had compared to the talent that people had. And we just thought, you know what, as simple as having an event that inspires people, how much can that affect somebody to go on and be better? So I'll give you an example,
sure,
if you don't mind, at this time. A friend of ours that we also became my friend, actually, from working together in that same place, was brought in as a temporary receptionist. Young man about to marry, etc., etc., etc. It was a receptionist, and the head of the school liked him so much, made him permanent. But that's what he was doing, earning that amount of money. I went in as a consultant project manager at the time. And he found himself using the system that I was brought in to implement, found himself sitting close to me, learning a bit more about the system, knowing a bit more. He didn't do any of the technical bits that I was brought in to do, but just learning the user interface and how to manipulate the system. And based on his native intelligence, he became good at that system. And he put it on his CV as being able to use that system and a lot of other things that he could do on it. He got a call. And he said to me and Dotto, can you just coach me a bit more on this system? I've got an interview. And I went, you've got an interview? How come did you get an interview? He said, yeah, I put it on my CV that I know about the system. And that's it. From without telling you a whole lot more or boring you with my story, he got a job as a consultant. Amazing. Right straight from being a receptionist. And we sat down there 3 years ago, just reflecting stories like that. And we thought, you know what? How much did he get from us or from any other person to be able to better himself, better his now family with his little girl? He ended up working as a consultant for a couple of years. In fact, another interesting part of the story is when he was brought in, he was actually fully trained more than we could even ever train him. But all they needed was that first instance and first understanding of what the system can do, which he got from us, which did not cost us anything. So we sat down there thinking, are there many people like this around us and in our community that's got this intelligence, that knows stuff, but would not have opportunity for one reason or the other? Right. Are there little things that we can do that would not cost us a lot of money to be able to get them to better themselves? And that was basically the start of C4B.
Well, that's a good place to start and good inspiration for creating this network. And, so looking at your profile and looking at the profile of C4B, it seems to be targeted at, the youth. Is it only for the youth, or is it open to anyone within the community that is looking to better themselves?
Actually, a long-winded answer. It's open to everybody. When we started, we were not particularly gender conscious. We were not age conscious. We, like I said, that was when we sat down there and we both just said, you know what, let's write something down. Let's think about it. Let's go away. And because I had more time, I ended up picking up the action for writing a mini framework for what we wanted to do. We didn't think about it as forming an organization. We just thought about it as, okay, let's call out a couple of people. It's not particularly young people. Let's just call out a couple. So it started with friends and family, really. Okay. Just say, come around. Let's get people. Let's get inspiration. Let's just talk. Common sense, really, is what I call it. And it's been testimonials upon testimonials since then. So go back to your question. Short answer is for everybody.
It's for everybody. All right, which is actually quite good, because there is a drive not just from the end of the youth, but also for those who have worked through a career and looking to change and not sure how to start. So having a network like this will be very, very useful.
Yes, sure. It is. And we've seen a lot of people at different levels of their career attend our events. And people have come back to say, yes, this has been very beneficial. And maybe one of the other things I should add in at this point is we started off thinking, how can we run free events? We know that there are a couple of other people doing stuff out there, but we thought, like I gave you the example I shared earlier on, it was free. It didn't cost us anything. We sat down in a room, spent a couple of hours, maybe 1.5 hours, just to talk him through. And there'll be people like that just need inspiration, that just need guidance, that just need coaching or mentoring for next to nothing. And then we get them to think about how to take hold of opportunities in this environment, and take us from where we are and just break through this glass ceiling that we know can be available for Black and ethnic minority people.
Okay. So, you talk about one of the things that I noticed that was a distinction with C4B is that it's BME, which is Black Mixed Ethnic, but not the BMAE. So was there a reason why you went specifically for BME?
Actually, at the start, again, like you said, most of these things just start with an idea, not particularly with a full-fledged strategy. So when we started, it was, again, just friends. Myself and daughter are both Africans, or both Nigerians, actually. So we both just started with Nigerians. And one of the mentors that we opened up to earlier at that point said to us, and I thought we should just open it up on BBAME at that point. And one of the mentors said to us, you know what? You've never done anything like this before. You don't know the language of everybody. Why don't you just start with what you know? And for me, then it made sense 3 years ago. So we thought, okay, you know what? We're just going to be for Africans. Some of our banners still read for Africans, and then it was only after. And I like this part of it as well. So even though we'll advertise and we'll go out and say whatever solution we are providing is for the Africans of that entire big community.
Right.
But we'll still get Asians, we'll still get Caribbean people in handful, which will make me smile and think, okay, I like this, because people just want to get better. It doesn't matter even if you say it's for Africans. And then only about 1.5 years after, or 2 whatever years after, when we wanted to go for our registration, we then thought, okay, you know what? we started to get Caribbeans in as well more. Why don't we just make it Afro-Caribbeans? So when we say Black Minority Ethnic Group, BME for us, at this moment, we are actually focusing on Afro-Caribbeans. Again, not to say if you go on on any of our channels, you'll see, I think there was one video where we had, I think the event we had for the youth people this year, we had two Asians in our video there. Again, just tells you that it's open. Whilst that's our focus, only because that's a language, that's the makeup of the team that we've got at the moment. So we understand the intricacies from our side. That's why we're doing it that way. Maybe at some point in the future, we'll then include that if we get people to join the team and we can speak that language as well.
Okay, so essentially, what you started it on the premise of, you start with the area you know most, and you started with your friends, your family, and it wasn't that you were excluding, but it was, like you said, the language that you understood, and you understood the problem from your perspective, and also the team that you were working with. But C4B is open to those from other parts of the BME community.
Correct. That's essentially what it is. Yes.
Okay, so going through your bio, going through the information, both you and Dosung, who's not here with us tonight, you speak about challenges that you experienced in your working life, in your corporate world. So, what direct experience did you experience, or challenges you have, that made you decide that this has to happen? You talked about the young man that you mentored through, who's gone on to become a consultant, but what about your own direct experiences?
For me, it's not so much direct as such. It's just the observation, is how what I've seen in the places I've worked. So I relocated to the UK a couple of years ago, and I've worked in local government. I currently work in the NHS. I've worked in the education sector as well, and also the charity sector. So it's basically, for me, what I've observed, how it's so difficult. So currently where I am, I can look up and then see how many Black people have you got? How many Caribbeans have you got? How many Africans have you got? In fact, how many Asians have you got? Are there challenges that people are facing? The other day, just out of interest, again, not particularly directly related to me, somebody that I work closely with came out of a meeting before together, and then I saw her sad. I went up to her and said, interestingly, she was Ghanaian. She's quite junior to me, and I said, why are you feeling? She said, all those things that were said in that meeting, don't you realize that is all ridiculous? It's all fake people here. There are no opportunities, blah, blah, blah. And we stood there in front of a lift for 1 hour trying to just encourage, inspire. And whilst I like to think, I said to her as well, and I said to many people, whilst I like to think I can navigate my way around at my level, I wouldn't let these issues directly affect me. Maybe that's why I wouldn't talk about a lot of direct issues. But I see a lot of people break down mental issues. Just yesterday, even somebody who is not particularly Black also was saying to me at work, she's just come back after eight weeks of being absent from work, signed off sick.
Oh, wow.
And these are kind of things that people suffer, the mental damage, the discrimination, and how it affects people, because the organization or the corporate world is not sensitive enough to provide opportunities. But even far beyond that, I came into this country, maybe that's something I should tell you. Came into this country, I haven't worked in a bank for about 7-8 years, good career from where I was coming from. I came into this country, I couldn't get a job for about 8 months. And only because somebody said to me across the street, you know what, Ayo, when I also came into this country, I volunteered. Why don't you look for volunteering opportunities? So I only was able to get into that environment because I volunteered. Why should people on the street, because they're minorities, because they've relocated, for example, looking at that cohort of people, why should they not have the same opportunity that people with the same skill level have? So those are the kind of challenges that we're talking about, and providing that opportunity for people to say, come around. Let's just say to you, come and see people that look like you. Come and see people that may have gone through things that you are going through, or you are currently facing as well, and then ask questions, and then let them tutor you, guide you, inspire you, or motivate you to take the right direction.
Okay. So, and you know what? You've touched on quite many points here, from the mental health to how the corporate world are not really, on board with diversity. Diversity seems to be the biggest buzzword for 2018. And but yet it doesn't seem to be getting any better, because there's constant talk about diversity, and if we look at it on a whole, why does it not seem that it's not getting better, supposedly compared to the reports of the US, supposedly? In your opinion, what is going on with the diversity agenda?
Well, whatever I say now, I'm not saying it as an expert in diversity, but what I see, again, my opinion from the kind of organization that I work, or from the bigger organization of the NHS, being the largest employer of labor here. Whilst there are a lot of activities corporately that people may be associating with, I still think people are not genuine, like the young lady said to me. People are not genuine. People are just paying lip service and following a process, as against being true to what the advantages that diversity and inclusion can bring to you, and to be real and want the real output. I suppose that's the instance. So for example, I sat, which this is about, well, maybe a year and a half ago, and I sat in our own BME network in where I work, and one of the issues that was raised is, why wouldn't there be a feedback, for example, when a black person or a BME person have gone for an interview, for an internal interview for promotion? Why wouldn't? And the MD said, "Oh, isn't there any?" And people started giving examples, instances about where they've gone for internal interviews and they've not been given feedback. So how do they improve? How do people really mentor to ensure that they are get the opportunity that they should get? Those are the kind of reasons why it feels like, whilst there's a lot of activity, and like you said, diversity is the buzzword for this period or this
yes,
season.
for 2018, diversity is the word. Yes, let's talk about diversity. And yet we are all white Anglo-Saxon Protestant people in a room. But hey.
No, I think if you ask me again, I'm not as an expert. I wish I'll become an expert very soon, actually, because I'm getting more interested by the day. But again, it goes back to it's about how genuine, how real are people, or especially our white colleagues, how real and genuine do they really want this to happen? And because it's going to cost time. It's not going to cost a lot of money, but it's going to cost people time. So see, for example, the example I gave to you of the young man. We had to sit down on a Sunday for a couple of hours just to do the mentoring, just to say, okay, if you're going for this and you really love this is what you want to do. I've got the knowledge. I haven't worked on this system for a couple of months.
Right.
I will download to you as much. Tell you what, whenever I say this story to people, I wasn't doing the mentoring, in fact, that I believed, because I thought, wow, how is he going to close the gap? I have not worked on the back end. I have not done this methodology. I have not done that. But apparently he's done his research, and his preparation was able to meet with the opportunity that was presented, and some other people would then say that's luck. So he got the luck, but he got himself into that role. So go back to the corporate environment. How much are the senior people, both white and black, mentoring the younger ones? How much are we concentrating on the pipeline? How much feedback are we giving? How much reverse mentoring is happening? Those are the example where we've seen. So for example, when we host our event, we've had a couple of senior people come in, and the good example is somebody that works in the NHS. Wellington Makala is an assistant, is a deputy director actually in one of the trusts, and he gives a beautiful example every time he comes. He's one of the top. Their trust is one of the top in the country, actually acknowledged and with a lot of awards and accolades. To doing great in terms of diversity and inclusion agenda. And he was, I think, one of the pioneers that set up that BME network, and a great thing they're doing there. And I look to them. But again, why do I remember them whilst talking now? Whilst the CEO is a white person, I think, from my own opinion and observation from afar, is the fact that I believe he's quite genuine. Again, maybe we can argue, maybe because he's getting to his retirement, he wants to leave a legacy, etc., etc., etc. That's another debate for another day. But he seems very genuine. One of the actions they are doing, for example, is they come to a point where every interview panel, for example, will be as diverse as the person coming in as an interviewee. So, for example, if a black person is coming, they've come to a point where the policy says there must be a black person on the interview panel. As simple as that. So that the person coming, the rationale is, the person coming feels at ease once the person enters that room. Imagine yourself going in for an interview and you find, as a lady, you find 3 white, elderly looking, whatever, men, and you have to be talking to them as a young lady. How much more confidence do you need? How much more do you need to overcome that in itself? And that in itself can be a put away. And no matter what diversity agenda that they may have in that particular organization, as simple as that, will not be helpful. So that particular organization has looked at those little things that can help inspire, get people to be on the right wavelength and make sure that those activities are not just buzzwords, but they really have real impact.
Okay. Now, I actually stand and I actually believe in everything you've just said. And also, I actually think that what you're doing with C4B is really crucial, not just now, but actually going forward. It's very, very crucial because we need spaces where we can go in, we can mentor with people who look like us, understand in greater amount the experiences or our experiences from our point of view. But, just to turn this on its head, because we're always talking about diversity in terms of what they have to do for us to make it better. But my question is, looking around, one of the key points that you've made about C4B is talking about the impacts that it's having on the youth, and there's a lot of issue with inadequate skill sets, low mindset, low self-confidence. So here's my question. What can parents do to make sure that their kids are not leaving schools with low skills, with not the right mindset to get into a workplace? What are our own personal responsibilities? So let's look at parents, and then we'll broaden it out a bit more. So what are the responsibilities of parents here?
Well, I think I might be adequately suited to be able to answer that question as a father of 3 little boys myself.
Okay.
Yeah, my personal opinion is it all starts with the parents, it all starts with the father, it all starts with the mother. And when we started off and when we started growing and we were looking at this with the eye of the future, one of the things that we set out to do was, or one of the reasons why we set out to continue what we do is, if we are able to reach as many parents as possible, that will put them in a good stead to be able to mentor and inspire their own child or put them in the right environment, if that makes sense.
Yes.
The more the parents are well educated, well inspired, with good confidence themselves, the better possibility it is. I think I'm going to look for, I think I wrote it down in front of me at some point. I hope I can find it. There's a popular research that there's a great link between the level of education of parents to the level of poverty in a family. So it all, go back to your question. It all starts with the parents and
right.
What we are doing and what other people like organizations like us are doing, which is why we've not set out to say it's for the youth, because whilst the youth, concentrating on the youth is great, concentrating on the adults is as well as great, if possible, as concentrating on the youth or even the younger ones as well.
Right.
Because if you can catch, so for example, go back to my example of our young friend. He wasn't married at the time. He's now married with one child. That sets him up in a different path as against earning 17,000 to earning whatever he was earning as a consultant.
Of course.
provides for him, gives him a different kind of exposure. As against staying in a school, not to say that, not to belittle people that work in a school, I work there as well, but staying in front of a reception and being limited in his own mindset. Now it throws him into a different world, working in another establishment whereby he was a consultant and going into organizations and implementing these systems over a period of time, giving him a wide exposure helps him a lot. And hopefully that will translate into the life of his child as well, how he wants his child to live, if that makes sense. So my first answer is, to your question about what's the responsibility towards as parents, is if we concentrate on ourselves as parents or as adults and get the exposure that we need, get the mentoring that we need, get the coaching that we need, get out of this low skill job, for example, ourselves as much as possible, then that puts the children that is coming from our family in a better state. Does that make sense as a first starter?
It makes perfect sense. It absolutely does, because, they say charity starts at home. So what you see is what you emulate.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
know.
And then subsequently, maybe the next step is therefore, if parents are exposed, so for example, and I think particularly from where we've come from, I think you don't even need. So my father, for example, he's got a master's. So even though we never spoke about you must have a master's, I think it's just inbuilt that because I know he has a master's. So there's something for me to think about. Maybe that's appropriate or not in this environment. That's another conversation. But that's something already, even without a direct verbal coaching, if you see what I mean, or verbal mentoring. And
Yes.
exactly what you said, you become what you see. So look at the great families, for example, and you see the influence on the child. So it guides how the child becomes and ensures that the child do not have low self-esteem or low mindset and those things that you laid out earlier on.
Okay. So, and we're looking at this, and let's kind of segue back to the youth just very quickly, because we're talking about, starting with the schooling and the home and, to make sure that they have the right skills. And you kind of go into schools and which is one of the work that C4B is doing, is actually going in and reaching into schools. Have you found out that there are career paths that you find BME students are being directly or indirectly steered from and steered towards? Have you found that may have been the case?
Again, it depends. I think it depends on the school. It depends on the locality. The more poorer locality, it's not so much so as being steered. One of the things I say to my wife every time, having lived in one of the poorest boroughs in London as well myself, is there is a limitation with the teachers as well, with the teaching staff as well.
Right.
There's a limitation with the parents that come in as well, where most parents are all in hijabs or are all looking scruffy when they come pick children. That translates somehow, finds its way somehow to go. Not that things are said or not said directly or indirectly to the children. It's just how these things work. We become who we see. You see what I mean? So compare a teacher that I've got, for example, a corporate experience before going into teaching, or a teacher themselves that is quite versatile, a teacher themselves that knows how to get into these careers, for example, knows the benefit. Compare that to a teacher that doesn't, that is just core teacher, that just core expert in education, for example.
Right.
I see that as one of the limiting factors. So one of the things I say to my boys' school is, we're happy to come in. We're happy to come in and showcase. So even if it's lack of ignorance, or is that correct? Even if it's because of ignorance of the teachers, having organizations like C4B and other organizations out there, because they're numerous now, going into these schools and then helping the teaching staff to steer the students into all possibilities as much as possible. It gives them a good ground to start from, a good and solid foundation for the children to start from.
Okay. All right. So I like the fact that you're very balanced in how you're answering this, and trying to make sure that you're looking for the positive, because the reason why I asked this question, there was a news report talking about girls in education, and how a lot of girls, and both, girls within our community and outside of our community, seem to be, they're either steered towards nursing or
Yeah,
social care.
yeah.
And, the careers in, say, STEM and tech and all of those areas are being totally ignored. And
Mm.
and I'm thinking, if that's happening to just girls, is it also happening to, on the BME front, that they're being advised, because like you said, limitation of the teachers or limitations of ambition of
Mm.
those around them, saying, well, this is where you're supposed to go.
Thank you for actually noting that I was quite balanced. Again, maybe because of my makeup. One of the things we should run away from doing, and especially news tries to do that, news headlines try to do that, is generalization. It's quite difficult because we've not been to all schools. We've not been to all schools in the UK. We've not been to all schools in London, for example, and we don't know that we've not gone to state schools. We've not gone to private schools. We've not gone to grammar schools, etc., etc. So we'll never know. You see where I'm coming from.
Yes.
However, having said that, again goes back to my previous answer. It depends on the school. Where where the school sees a lot of nurses being black, for example, there's a temptation that is in the mind.
Right.
Where the school is quite limited and concentrated. So, for example, give an example. My boy's just been blessed and just started his year 7 in a grammar school. Whereas most schools will concentrate on football. I remember going to this open day or whatever day it was when we parents went in, and I remember this white head teacher of this famous grammar school in the country said to us, "Sorry, boys, if your interest is in football, this is not the place for you."
Okay.
Like, wow, that was hard. My second boy said on our way, turned around, he said, "So if that's the case, I'm not coming to this school, Dad and Mom." Now, that's a school that believes in diversity. For example, and when I say diversity, not particularly race diversity. So they've seen that there's a lot of push, for example, in their sports to football because that's the reigning thing. And what they concentrate on is rugby, for example. Again, just to put a diversity in the minds of the children. You see what I mean? So, but
Exactly.
whereas some schools can be a bit lazy, not necessarily because they're trying to steer BME children or girls or boys in a particular direction, but again, maybe ignorance, maybe resources will limit them and make them almost stay in one place or a limited number of places. You see what I mean? Even when they then get a certain number of careers to come to their school, they possibly will not look at a creative artist, for example. They possibly will not look at one of these other jobs that is not popular, for example, as a career, or maybe an engineer, or a blogger, for example. They may not
Yes.
even know how successful you can be as a blogger. I get that a lot of the time when I talk to people that come to our event, or even when I'm doing my normal counseling or guidance, and people say to me, "How can you be successful as a guidance? Come on, go out there. There are many people that are successful as a blogger. Go out there and then check how they are. We can connect you. We can find some connect you." So again, I said to my wife, it's quite intensive to make sure that you're balanced and you're diverse. And I understand it when schools cannot be because it requires a lot. They
Right.
are trying to do a lot. So I won't criticize. I would understand it if it's true that statistics says there's certain people, but there might be a lot of factors. And that's why organizations like us should be encouraged to come in and help and steer the boys or the girls in as much better direction as possible than the school can do.
Okay. So my question here is, when we're looking at the youths, and we're going to concentrate on the youth just for a little longer,
That's fine.
when we think about them and think about the opportunities going forward, because you actually touched on it slightly when you talked about bloggers, speakers, and all the other creative careers, what do you think is the greatest opportunities for the next generation in the professional world?
It has to be something around technology, isn't it? It has just to be something. The other day I was asking myself, I was doing my own self-reflection, and I thought, yeah, I'm in the project and program management space. But what will happen in the next couple of years? And so that's obvious. I think to anybody, it's going to be technology driven. So the greater opportunities will be around those places. Not to say that traditional careers would die off. I think it's just that they will be much more driven, and I think they are. The other day, I was in a particular conference, and at the close of it, I think it was something about reflecting on. It was a health conference or health related conference, and I think somebody senior was then talking at the end of the show. Out of 45 minutes, the most brilliant presentation I've ever seen in a long time. Just reflecting from the start of the NHS, for example, and how things have moved on and the kind of things that people are trying to do now with technology, with robots, and a lot of other things coming through. And I sat down there and I couldn't just close my mouth at some point. I was sad that I didn't get the presentation anyway, because I would have loved to have the presentation. But that's just to go back to your question around what's the opportunity for young people. It has to be something around there. It has to be something around technology. The other thing about my self-reflection is not just only becoming a good blogger, a good digital marketer, or a good whatever in technology. It has to, I think the other day I was reflecting with Dotun, and we're chatting, and I said, actually, what were we talking about? We're talking about, again, opportunities. And we got to a point where we're talking about, a lot of people, young people, another cohort of young people now believe that you've got to have second degrees. A lot of people going into universities to have PhDs. And
Right.
Dotun was saying, I interview a lot of people these days, and I see a lot of them with minimum is a master's, is an MSc or MA. But sometimes they're not as good as those without it. And I said, and we're chatting back and forth. And we come to a point where I said to him, you know what? The order of the day now is a master's in relationship management. And he laughed. And I said, that's exactly how you are going to thrive in the coming few years. It's happening already. It's all going to be relationship based. It's all going to be who you know.
Yes.
Salespeople will say that people buy people after all.
Yes.
That's going to increase in enormous because even though you are going to be this wonderful technical person that knows all this stuff, it's all going to be relationship. You're not going to get business if you don't have the ability to cultivate the relationship. If your networking skills is not as great as it should be, if you want to remain an introvert instead of trying to find a way to make sure that even as an introvert, you're still able to make the connections as best as possible. That's going to be where the opportunities lie for young people. So it's about developing your technical skills, whatever career you're going to go into, and it's about getting your master's, as I call it, in relationship management.
Okay, I like that. I may have to invest in that myself.
And that's, once you go out there and sell that, that's you've got to pay me some intellectual property because I can put my brain.
All right, so we're talking about this, and we're talking about diversity, and we're saying earlier about the expectation of what we expect that the corporate world needs to do. So, looking at the work you're doing with Connect4Better, what is our responsibility in making sure that when we talk diversity, it's not a fad, it's not something that is just done to us, but we are actively participating and taking part?
I guess it's the stuff that we're doing, for example, and it's the stuff, again, I like to pay homage to people out there that are doing similar or even better things. It's the stuff that we're doing and showing people that more than policies and regulations, people have to be interested. This is a thing of the heart, not a thing of the paper, I think is what it is. And I'm a proponent of leading by example, which is why I love what I do with C4B, or I love what we do with C4B. It's about showing people. So we get a lot of people come to us. We want you to partner with us, collaborate with us in our organization to do X, Y, and Z. And I'm delighted when I get that, because I think that's how we're going to get in there in the corporate world. in the corporate environment to show them that the little stuffs like this that we need to just invest in, we need to get going. It needs to be, like you say, it doesn't have to be a fad. It doesn't have to be a thing of the mouth. It has to be from your heart. You've got to want it. You've got to know what the benefits are. You've got to invest in the pipeline of minority that you've got. You've got to invest your time to understand what the diversity is in your organization. You've got to invest your time and to be close to them. A lot of mentoring has to go on. It has to be not only it has to be part of the process of the organization, obviously, but more than that, it has to be something that is appreciated by the people you're trying to do it for. Because there's one thing, which is another thing that I see a lot. There's one thing saying to your organization, we've got a good inclusion or diversity program, etc. Is another thing that the diverse or the minority in your organization actually believe that what you've got is real.
Right.
Otherwise, it's just, again, it's going to remain a fad.
Okay.
So it's a leadership thing, and there are numerous research out there about the link between leadership and improving the diversity pipeline.
Okay.
Or the diverse pipeline.
So how can we take charge? And I'm talking about with the work that you're doing, but outside of the work that we're doing, because you look at and you know that there's, you're looking at people, you're looking at the barriers on a day-to-day basis. What are the top 3 things that we can do to take personal responsibility?
And when you say we, who are you referring to?
So when I say we, I'm talking about us within the community.
Individuals.
The individuals that make up our BME community. So when I say we, I'm talking about that we can do to actually say, you know what? I want to be responsible for my personal development. I want to be responsible for my leadership. I want to be responsible for how I am seen in the workplace. What are the top 3 things that we can do?
Actually, you've answered one of the questions, haven't you? But I'll put them in this order. So it's get involved in the community. So we've just posted a video, for example. Again, going back to, I think I need to send this to Wellington now because I'm referencing him a lot. I've come to like him, that's why. One of the events that Wellington attended, he was saying there's something about us as a community as well that we can be a bit self-centered, and he was emphasizing the need for us to be selfless, creating opportunities for others. So my top one is encouraging people to get involved, in the community. And when I say that, don't just make it about yourself. You are successful. For example, if you are at whatever level of success you have achieved, find a way to get involved and get other people. So get involved like in organizations like C4B, start something, found another organization, get a group of young people, go into schools, or we can't do enough of those things. I don't know if that makes sense. If you're religious, go into your mosque, your church, wherever organization you go into at the weekend, and just get involved. Let's become a bit more selfless. And I said it at our event when we end as a closing remark. We started off wanting to organize free networking event, and you'll be shocked that, particularly as Africans, we do have free environments where we can have networking, but it just doesn't happen. Example, we have churches, for example, but you'll be shocked that you sit beside somebody in church, and after you do the amen and we all leave, that's it. Right. That's all it. You'll be shocked that the next person doesn't even know that they work in Facebook, for example. They don't even know what Facebook is or how to get employed. You will be shocked that those levels of ignorance still exist in the organization. You'll be shocked in the community. So my first advice or encouragement would be get involved, just at whatever level. I said to you when I came in and I didn't get work for 8 months, it was somebody that I'd known previously, shouted to me, we were somewhere, we were living across the street, and just said to me, you know what, Ayo, just try. I tried volunteering. Just try volunteering. Go up, look for volunteering opportunities. I didn't know that. You'll be shocked many people don't know many things It can be simple or as complex. So get involved. Find a way to get what you know out there. Start a website. Start a blog. Start a vlog. Whatever it is. Make sure at what level. Don't wait to be as successful as Bill Gates or not. At your level, you'll be shocked that you can impact. And that's why I like to appreciate what you're doing here as well, Lillian, because it's an opportunity for another 150 people to download and learn one or two things and become better. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, as individuals, again, at whatever level, get involved in the organization. Wherever you find yourself in this environment, get involved. Find a way to get involved. I make it a point of duty. I go somewhere. If I've got the time, I see security officers within I will chat. I'll stay and chat with them. Find out, why are you still a security officer? Not necessarily in a condescending manner, but just to have an opportunity to build the connection and to have an opportunity to throw it in there. Have you considered that you may have other options? Just to throw it in there. And get involved in the organization, get involved in people in the organization as well. Now, this is where the interesting thing is. Not only in Black and ethnic minority things, which is what most of us are now doing. We're getting involved in the BBAME network, which is good. But let's get involved in more things in the organization that we may find ourselves, small or big. Because that's the only way we're going to make real difference. That's the only way we're going to build the right connections. That's the only way we're going to increase our value. That's the only way we're going to tell people who we are and what we can do.
Exactly.
That's the second thing. And then, of course, the final thing is go out there if you're listening and just make sure you find a way to be better yourself, because don't forget that there's a future generation. And even without you getting an opportunity to talk to them, like the first two points I've raised, some other people are dependent on you. And so the better you can be, the better 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people can be. And I close and I end that question with this. The example is, so look at Anthony Joshua, for example. He's gone out there and he's become the best he can be in his career, in his chosen career.
Right.
And I won't be shocked how many other Black ethnic minority people, just by seeing Anthony Joshua, want to go into boxing as a career. Just by seeing him. Not by what he says, not because he's getting involved, not because he's doing any other thing. Those things are important. But just because he's gone out to be the best he can be within his own career, you'll be shocked by the many lives that he's able to touch. So those are my 3 tips. Does that answer your question, or does that help?
It absolutely does. It answers the question perfectly. Thank you so much for that, Ayo. So we have come to that point in the show that I always ask my guests for something that I call the so loud moment, because we live in a world and we need to actually take a moment and actually champion great things happening around us, and they happen consistently. So it's your turn, Ayo. What is your so loud moment for the week?
And so this is just to clarify, this is just me talking about or highlighting or mentioning what I've seen out there that is great. Is that correct?
Yeah, it could be highlighting what you've seen that is great in the Twitter sphere. It could be people in your network. It could even be you and the work that your partner are doing to actually support these incredible projects that you're creating. So it's up to you.
Yes, I'll do a couple. I'll do 2. Of course, the first one will be the work that we are doing. It's been wonderful starting out 3 years ago with our own funds. Just trying. We were not thinking about it in any great detail. It was just, can we affect as many people as possible with limited resources? We put our resources together, and we just started out one event after the next. So seeing multiple people having the opportunity after 3 years to have touched over 550 lives is quite encouraging, and listening to those feedbacks every time we get a returner to the event or when we get an email is quite encouraging and inspiring to us as well, that sometimes you just need to go out there and just start. Don't think too much. Don't try to dream too much. Just go out there as little as possible. Just start. The other person I like to highlight, and I don't think I've got her name, is somebody that come to our event previously, and I was fascinated by her story. And as I talk, I'll try to see if I can look for her actually, because I now cannot remember her name. But it will be very useful for me to speak about her. So this is a young lady that started her own company, and she taught herself. She had the idea of building something like a recruitment, whatever, online digital platform, whatever it is. I might not be saying this properly, but the bit I wanted to emphasize is, and then she said, okay, she thought she needed to know how to code, and of course, because she couldn't afford it, she stopped talking at the time, so she went back, and within 3 months taught herself to code, and basically designed this platform herself. She
Amazing.
did our event in January 2017, and it wowed everybody with that story. But that's not the end of the wow. She returned to our young people's event as a member of the audience earlier this year, and I was even more fascinated. She's built this company or this service or this product to a point whereby she's now got her first investor, and they've invested couple of thousands into that business. So that was
Nice.
a wow moment for me. That wow, this is brilliant. Again, goes back to my point earlier on. If you are listening or now, or you're going to download this later, don't wait. Just you've got the idea, get a friend, get somebody, get a partner. Just think through this and just start. You can learn, as difficult as coding may sound. You can learn anything at any point in your life, and you'll be shocked what 2 years down the line, just 2 years down the line, will mean for you.
You
Thank you.
know
Have
what?
I done that well?
You have done it perfectly, and that shout out deserves a huge round
Shout
of
out.
a huge round of applause. Here we go. The So Loud moment of the week.
Thank you.
Yes, you have done that excellently well. And we've talked about the business, we've talked about what you do, but looking at your plate, you have a day job, you have the business, you have a family. So how do you manage your time so that you don't burn out?
Oh, to be honest, that's a conversation that I think deserves a TED talk. Managing three little boys, working with my wife because I don't manage her, but working with my wife, and managing my job. Wow. And I don't know how to, and same with Dotto as well, doing his own job. And just for listeners, and I think he should have an opportunity to be interviewed himself as well, because I think he's a great inspirational person himself. I'll come back to your question. He runs his own organization that he started and built up from scratch, and they are raking in couple of thousands now annually, and I think it's fabulous, whereby he's now recruiting almost up to 10 people now doing work across, particularly educational, across schools in the UK.
Okay.
So for him doing that, running his own family as well, and then doing C4B, I think, wow, deserves a TED talk, because I don't know how. But one thing, if I reflect, if there's one top tip, is if you inspire a good friends or people that are passionate as you are. So, I mean, having a team is something that will ensure that you're not burnt out. It's something that will ensure that you are refreshed.
Okay.
Because actually, we bounce off each other. Once you're down, somebody else is picking it up. So if there's one tip, making sure that you're not solo,
Right.
is something that I would advise, because otherwise it's just going to be practically difficult and more challenging than it is. I'm sure there are many more lessons that we can reflect on, but top tip for me will be just making sure that you've inspired the right people with your idea, and they can join you in whatever capacity. So we are all volunteers.
Okay.
doing this. We've got, if you check our channels, we've got a good large team, and not that everybody is operational as such, but everybody commit and do what they need to do to make sure that we continue. So, and that helps to ensure that the load is a bit taken off a bit, even if it means just editing work, because otherwise you've got to write and edit yourself as well. So if somebody is just, all they do is just editing for you, that's brilliant, and that takes away a certain amount of pressure. So I guess what I'm saying in a long-winded way is a team well inspired and therefore have the same level of passion as you for your idea will help you to ensure you're not burned out.
Okay. All right. And, looking at your journey so far with everything that you're going through, have gone through, what advice would you give your 15-year-old self?
Oh, what advice will I give to myself?
Your 15-year-old self, yes.
I will enjoy a bit more. I will enjoy a bit more, to be honest. The social life, if I can just up it a bit, make me a bit more balanced, then yes, that's the advice I'll give to myself. Again, because you put me on the spot, it's not something I'll usually, maybe if I go home now, I'll think of something else. But on the show, I think it's on the social end because again, your previous question, how do you ensure that's something that will help you? In addition to having a good, passionate team, is about ensuring that you are kind of breaking off, having fun, socializing as much as possible. Is something that I don't do enough. I do
Okay.
well, don't do enough, and it's basically because of the background. So if I was 15 or even at 10, it's something that I started to say to my 12-year-old boy now. Make sure that you're building your friendship and make sure that you're having fun as much as possible now, from now. Just put that, it just has to be controlled. But if you can build on that now, because I think it's something that you pick up from when you're young.
Okay. That's actually a very great answer. Having more fun is
Oh, I thought I
absolutely
disappointed
necessary.
you.
No, 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 no. You need more fun. Come on. The world is so serious. Making time, like you said, to be balanced and having that fun is necessary.
Yeah, yeah. I grew up being a church person, so having that kind of a balance would not hurt. Actually, again, it will kind of improve my master's in relationship management.
Okay. All right. And that's important. We know it is.
Yes, we now know it is, even if we didn't know it was before.
We know now. Now we know. That's the next
Yes,
masters that we have to get. We have to master
absolutely.
our relationships.
Yes.
All right. So just a couple more questions, and we've talked about it in different aspects. Where you talked about setbacks. How do you personally bounce back from setbacks?
I stay in the moment, and I have to be careful here. So this is my church mind coming in here. I stay in the moment of setbacks. If you allow my self reflection, if you allow yourself to be knocked down, I think that's the main issue. Um, because rising up then becomes a chore. Rising up then becomes something you've got to work on. And when I say I stay in the moment, I don't allow myself to be knocked out, whatever the setback is. I just make sure. I think the work for me is ensuring you're still here,
Right.
whatever it is. And people might be listening and thinking, "Oh, what's he talking about?" So I'd lost a son before. Actually, my first son I lost at birth. But again, I just ensured that I was there for
Okay.
myself, there for my wife. No need to go, wow, this has happened. So therefore, I'm just going to go crazy first. Because once you do that, the effect on mental health is just too enormous. And you don't have to see counselors, you don't have to see, you don't have to do a lot to make sure. I was in a particular problem once, and myself and my wife, and it was a family issue. And I said to my wife, "Let's go out on it. let's go out on a date. And I had a guest meet us on the road, and we parked to describe the issue. And I said, I'm taking my wife to a date. He said, but you said this just happened. I said, yes. So we've got to go on a date because I just like to stay in the moment, because once you break down, oh, this has happened, it's just too difficult, I think, will be my, and I don't know if I'm too philosophical or not, but that's how I handle my setbacks, if it makes sense.
Oh wow, that's actually a very powerful way to handle it, and thank you for sharing about the loss of your son and the process you went through with that. So yeah, I think staying in the moment is actually a really good piece of advice, because it gives you a moment to actually be present and how to take action from there.
Mm, don't, no need to knock yourself out. You've lost the promotion, you've lost trust, be there, be professional. I lost the promotion once, and senior people were sent to talk to me, and I kept saying to them, so what do you expect me to do to be professional? Yeah, we're just trying to ensure. I said, don't worry, I will be professional. I will be professional. You've got to be there. Because the moment you lose, for example, in that setback, your professionalism because you're upset, this is the spiral effect. You then need a whole lot of months to get out, and so therefore
Yes.
you're not going to be ready for the next round of promotion, because you're going to be watched. You're going to be graded. Then you then need counselors. You then need coaches. So there's no time, I guess, is for getting down. It's about staying there and treating yourself quickly as possible is the solution.
Okay. All right. And our final question for this evening
I'll
is
be glad to do that right in time.
yeah, is what is next for C for B?
Yes, so that's a very good question. Actually, we want to get bigger. Our plan for the next 2 years is to make sure that we can find a way, find funding, find sustainability to be able to reach. We've reached about 550 people, but reach 5,000 people
Okay.
uh, in the next 3 years is our target. Continue our main event, make sure they're free, do a lot of more workshops as people want them, make sure they're affordable if we need to charge. Um, Increase, do a lot on the web channel. We try to build a peer-to-peer via our portal on our website, where people can receive mentoring, receive coaching, and continue the networking in the digital space.
Okay.
To develop that's just been development has just been rounded up. So to open that up and see usage and see how much more benefit we can benefit people, and make sure again, just doing working up our plan and making sure that we can touch as many people as possible within not too much financial resources.
Okay. Don't you have an event coming up very shortly?
Oh, we do. Thank you. So we've got our next event, and it's Black British Network. Next event is October 9th, and it will happen between 6:30 and 9:30. We've got fabulous speakers. There again, this time around, we do a range of different events, but this one is going to be a panel conversation, and we'll be exploring, going back to one of the questions, how can we get involved? We're going to listen to these inspiring people give us different kinds of ideas about how to get involved, celebrating Black history, celebrating us, and ensuring that that heritage continues, so that many more generations to come, we celebrate us as well, haven't left a very, very good footprint on the sand of time.
Awesome. Right. So thank you so much. And one thing you didn't tell us is where the event is happening.
It's going to happen at London City Hall. It's the mayor's office hosting us this time around, and it's October 9th. It's a Tuesday, and it's between 6:30 and 9:30. Register now. Registration is free. At the moment, we've got over 87 people already registered. So it's 3 weeks to go, and the registration is going to pick up. Ensure you get a seat if you're listening, or when downloaded and you're interested. This is a good time to register. Come and just see what C4B is about. You're going to meet numerous people. You're going to listen to the panel conversation. You're going to get good advice. You're going to get good guidance. And you have an opportunity to experience some kind of form of speed mentoring as well.
Awesome. Okay, thank you so much for sharing, Ayo. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you here on the show tonight representing C4B. And, I'm looking forward to hearing more great works coming out from your network, and looking forward to actually seeing what you all actually create and put out as a legacy.
Thank you, Lillian. And the work that you do as well is quite inspiring. So let's keep it up again. Let's all get involved.
All right, thank you so much. So, guys, it's a wrap for this evening. You know what to do. If you want to hear more, come onto our website, shineoutloud.tv. Hit us up on LinkedIn. You know where to find us. We're on Twitter, we're on Insta, we're on Facebook. Reach out to us. We want to hear from you. And if you have someone that you're going, I want to hear this person on your show, please recommend. So, once again, it's a wrap, and good night.
You've been listening to the Shine Out Loud Show. If you want to connect with us or let us know what you thought of today's show, be sure to follow us on Twitter at Shine Out Show.